Okay.
Am I echoing?
Not so far.
How about now? How
Nope.
about now? How about
Nope.
now? How about
Nope.
now?
Nope.
Now? Now?
All right. I think you are. Now you are.
Recording in progress.
The show doesn't start until I echo. See you later.
And Dani will be back in just a second. So y'all will have to wait with just me. Hello, Thor. Thor at the door. What's going on, Steve? And Dani will be back in just one moment. This happens every time. It's super annoying. What is going on here? Try later. Cancel. There we go. All right. We've got two at least. And now Dani is back.
I'm back.
Yay. All right. Thor and Lena are here. I think that's enough for a party. Is there
It's all we need. It's a full house.
the full house? It is a full house. All right. Looks like there's 8 in the room. So Maya's here. All right. We're moving. All right.
Hi, Maya.
Dude.
Right?
It has been a lot. For those of you, just an update for people who follow our regular show, which is Words Podcast. You can go to wordspodcast.locals.com and use the promo code Welcome to Words, all one word in capital, for a free month there. We did have to skip our recording this week because I ended up having to travel because I had to stay an extra week in LA. And so we both are pretty busy. So we're just skipping that one and we'll be back to our regular programming in next Monday or the 2 weeks later. But there's been a lot of content lately. And for those of you who have still not checked out Transcendental Hinduism and the Nuclear Cult, we'll have more on that because more pieces keep being added to that pie coming up shortly. But go check that one out because I feel like it becomes increasingly prescient every day.
Totally. This is going to be another I told you so. It's just I see the pieces congealing. It feels very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
While we're waiting for other people to roll in, I'd like to share a trifle of a story, if I may.
Do it.
Ross and I went to the local bowling alley to play air hockey.
Okay.
And there was a pinball machine. It was a Guns N' Roses pinball machine, but it wasn't licensed because there weren't any real Guns N' Roses songs. And Ross said, "When was the last time you played pinball?" I'm like, "I can't remember." So he throws some quarters in the machine. I play a full game terribly. And at the end, it shows a photograph of me playing the game. Right? With some sort of animated slash figure next to me. And I was like, whoa. I had no idea that the surveillance state had crept its way into these games. And I felt so violated and disgusted, and I'm never playing them again.
Wow. Okay. So we have a pinball machine in storage, right? My cousin Michael, he had it, they had a pinball machine, and at a certain point he gifted it to us, and we had pinball machines are kind of fascinating. It's like the maintaining of them and the inside, it is kind of like it's like clock making or clock keeping or whatever it is. So I kind of dig pinball machines, and I went through a phase where I was excellent at them because of practicing all the time. It was like an old
just
school,
like Pac-Man.
Yeah, I like games. Yeah, old school firehouse pinball machine. But that is. Did you search for that online? Did you look up like pinball machines that take pictures of you?
I didn't because I just assumed it was the same night because he's doing a puppet show, so he was hunting for clothes for his puppet show. So we ended up going to like Hobby Lobby and Michael's and Target, and we went to all these places that I don't normally go, and I was shocked at like the high tech like self-checkout security surveillance system happening at Michael's. And it was just one of those moments where I realized like this world is going to shit. The surveillance state is completely taking over, and I think I just need to move to a hut like in Nicaragua.
So I was just doing a quick search. I think I have to dig a little bit further into it, right? There is like one possibility that it would make it not, would make it, was it like on a screen, and was it live, or did it show you a picture that was from like 30 seconds ago?
It showed me a picture that was like within a second or two of me finishing the game.
Okay.
I had no idea there was a camera on me. I had no clue.
Okay, so it wasn't like I have seen things before, like video games before, that it's not really a camera or screen. It's more like some weird like reflective thing that makes it look like you're in something, but there's no actual camera. But you're saying you saw a literal camera.
No, well, I didn't see a literal camera, but I saw a literal photograph of myself. And then we did another game, and we both stood there like we covered our heads and flipped off
Okay.
the camera. But think how much, like, I was playing that game for probably 3 minutes. It was filming me the whole time, I would imagine. It's probably like a Peter Thiel joint.
This is the whole thing about like monitoring people's small facial reactions to see how they, right? So like I feel like I have seen before we were even into this digital surveillance thing we're in now, like games that have some sort of like weird like reflective thing that may, right, but this sounds like something different. So let me dig a little bit into that, because this is but did you say anything to the owner of the bowling, the
No, I live in Libtardia. There's no point. I got kicked out of my Santa Fe community Facebook group this week. I'm just in this new place of realizing like I am the minority. The retards are running everything. There's no point in me saying something, but I feel like there needs to be some sort of warning when we're being surveilled, when my picture is being taken. It's,
well, like,
it's so over the top.
That they have to like, you know, they have that facial recognition stuff at the airport now, but they have a sign right on top of it that says that you can say no, and that's totally fine, right? So that they
Unless you're Derek Bros.
That's like not even go there, right? So that is weird. Like there should be, you know how you go into some places and there's like a sign out front that says like, just so you know, when you go in here, you're on camera, like we're recording for promotional things or whatever. You'd think that there would at least need to be something like that.
Yeah, we need to implement some sort of rules. Like I was looking into making a hat or wearing a t-shirt that says I do not consent to being filmed. And I checked with a lawyer and a cop, and they're like, that's not going to do anything. Like that's pointless. But I'm over being constantly surveilled.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's always so funny to me about any of this is how like they're doing all this surveillance, but like whenever somebody's robbed or has a crime committed against them, they can never solve it.
No,
right?
They don't have a clue.
Like they if they do solve it, it's never through the surveillance, right? And so like what literally is the point then? If it doesn't
just
work
for the intelligence agencies only.
100%, but you would think that like in order to maintain that veneer of this is for the people, they would have to solve a crime once in a while.
No, but the people are so stupid and apathetic at this point. They don't give a shit. We don't count. The thinkers don't count. We're such the small minority. So they're getting away with it. It's like we keep failing every test.
Pretty much.
Do you mind? I'm on a little bit of a roll. I'd like to share why I got kicked out of my Santa Fe community
I was
group.
going to ask you. I forgot. I got distracted with the last thing. So tell me why you got kicked out of that.
Please, may I have permission to share my screen, Ms. Moyer?
I grant you one wish, and that wish is for
Thank you. Okay, so I saw this post. Oops, that's not the post. Here we go. This was the post a day ago. I showed up at a class this morning in Santa Fe, was told by the teacher that she caught COVID at a funeral. She looked awful. The class was canceled. I thought, might be looking at wastewater data, which monitors our sewage for viral loads. Lo and behold, currently New Mexico is very high, Bernalillo County especially. That's where Albuquerque is. Okay. So of course, every comment is, yeah, that's why I'm quadruple masked and getting my 9,000th booster and blah, 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 blah. And So then my response, this was my response. Is this PSYOP still in play? They removed my comment, they gave me a warning, and I got kicked out of the group. But the reason was because it was for name calling and personal attacks. So help me make it make sense. How is this PSYOP still in play? Is name calling or a personal attack or is even disrespectful?
Well, there is a COVID entity and you offended it by calling it a PSYOP.
Yes, clearly.
I threaded that needle real quick, right? But it's true, at this point, it is like an entity or an egregore that grows by people's belief in it.
But what's so annoying to me, and I'm going to record a podcast about this tomorrow, is the gatekeeper problem, because this is supposed to be a community forum. Like, as far as I know, this is not being monitored by the intelligence agencies or local government. P.S. Our New Mexico Secretary of State just got busted for cheating in the election. And I'm praying she goes to prison and hangs, and then they put honey and ants on her. But we cannot even have like a local, unbiased community conversation about this because the mind-controlled vax to the max minions who are running this site remove anything that is not falling in line with the consensus narrative. And it's really fucking annoying.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, right? It's interesting, like that, whatever, like, I would say on some levels, like certainly if you think back to the 90s, Austin and Santa Fe occupy sort of a similar sort of place in terms of like the kind of people that like those places. And in fact, I do think like there was like at our old office building, there was like a mural on the wall that was talking about how Santa Fe and Austin are like twins or sisters or something like that, right? That is not like, there are some people here that still wear masks, but like that's the only, there's no other, I don't hear anybody talk about any of that stuff ever anymore. It doesn't feel like as nanified as Santa Fe is.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed.
It is. It's really, because I mean, you'd think it's like Santa Fe is pretty remote. Like it's pretty remote and it's not very urban and it's super crunchy and all of that kind of stuff. More so than I think Austin is. So like it surprises me. But the only thing I can think of is like there's some other personality characteristics that go along with like a lot of the kind of people that live in Santa Fe that put them in that category of people that may have found a lot of purpose, right, during COVID, and they don't want to let it go.
I think so, but I also think, don't forget Santa Fe Institute is here. And
Right.
I also think it's our mayor. So our mayor is a Seattle transplant who's a defund the police, pedophile, socialist retard. So I think he sets the tone for a lot of the slaviness here. It's really unfortunate. I just, I'm excited for myocarditis to really hit in full steam because it's making the town. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry.
When you do this, you get us demonetized.
Why am I not allowed to be a violent psychopath? Why is that prohibited in 2024? What if that is my authentic truth?
Oh God.
Which brings me to my final story. So I go to the post office to mail a couple Christmas presents to my assistants because I cannot stand lines or holiday rush and I need to get it done quickly. On the off chance that any of my assistants are watching, I'm not going to talk about what the presents are, but let's just say they're extremely lightweight, less than a quarter pound. So I mail one to New York, no problem. I go to mail one to Canada. Oh, we're not delivering any mail to Canada. And I'm like, what? They're having a mail strike. So I'm just taking it in. Like, okay, it's the holidays and there's zero United States Postal Service to Canada. So my only choices are UPS or FedEx. I go to UPS. They ask me, what is your phone number? I said, that's irrelevant. I just want to mail something. No, we can't mail anything without all of your personal information. Why? Why am I not allowed to have my right to privacy and my anonymity? So I had to give them not just my phone number, but I had to show an ID with a picture to send something. I had to give them the recipient's phone number, which I didn't have on hand. So I make up a phone number and she nails me on it. No, it can't have a local area code. It has to be a Canada specific number. I said, what if I'm sending it to someone who lives in New Mexico but happens to be doing a residency in Canada and has a New Mexico area code? No, they won't deliver it. And then they charge me $50. Wait. $50. It cost me $5 to mail it at the post office. So look at the holiday grift,
right,
that this is causing. Now I have
is this your PSYOP thing?
Yes, and I have evidence, but I want to please weigh in.
Okay, so I do a lot of UPS and FedEx for the cocktail job, and they don't ask those questions generally, but you were trying to send it to a different country. Like mine, I'm just sending it.
Canada's barely a different country.
Okay, but what I'm just saying is like they don't ever like when they ask me that they need a phone number for the delivery, I can say, or they're like, oh, do you want to use your phone number for that too? Right? They never ask for my ID. So it must be either a Santa Fe thing to go along with all the other rules they love,
right,
or because you were trying to send it to Canada. But that is interesting that there's this holiday grift, right? That is, does the postal strike have anything to do with Trump supposedly asking Justin Trudeau if he wanted to become the governor of the 51st state of the United States?
Did that happen?
Yeah.
What? I thought he hated Trudeau.
He does. Like, I think, like, I don't know if this was a joke or serious. Again, I'm not clear on the story, but I've seen enough references to it that I think it must be a real thing. That Trump, in some speech or some sort of roast or joke or whatever it is, like maybe made a joke of like annexing Canada and making it the 51st state and telling Justin Trudeau he could be the governor. Like, I think it was a joke. But I think Justin Trudeau is getting like, I think people are trying to recall him or something, aren't they? Like, aren't they trying to oust Justin Trudeau right now?
I don't know anything about that. But
does anybody in the chat room know what I'm talking about?
So think about this. It was going to be $5 to send it, and it ended up costing me $50. Think of someone who has 20, 30 gifts to send to their family.
Yeah.
That's going to bankrupt them. So it got me thinking, like, this is such a setup for UPS and FedEx to be grifting. So check this out.
Well, remember how hardcore Trader Joe's grifted when the supermarket strike in Los Angeles and California, like Southern California, lasted for like 3 years?
No.
Remember that whole grift?
No.
That's how Trader Joe's went from like mostly being a California and a few other places kind of thing to like every corner, every state, like growing into like the much bigger chain, right? Yeah.
That's interesting. So I remembered this from working on Plandemic. So in March of 2020, Gates, who was known for not really diversifying his portfolio, for holding on to the same things and really just sticking with whatever Warren Buffett was doing. But in March 2020, he made some really big changes. And check this out. Bill Gates owns significant shares of Sanderson Farms, FedEx Corporation, UPS, Inc. So who is profiting off of this strike? And then I started digging around about, well, what's the deal with Trudeau and Gates? And apparently they're like Diddy party butt buddies. So I think this whole postal strike is totally fake and a way to go for like a big greedy chunk of money during the holiday season. And my heart goes out to anyone in the States who has family in Canada who they're sending gifts to, because it's completely cuckoo off the charts.
Yeah, so this is a real story. Trump mocks Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as governor of the great state of Canada. top 51st state called Canada is an age-old dream and no joke. So there's people who are like, oh no, he's gonna become Hitler and colonize the world or whatever it is, right? But I
Right.
also think, aren't the Canadian people trying to ouster Canadians, ouster Trudeau? I'm a terrible typer. Not oyster, ouster. I'm the worst typer ever. Okay. All right.
Well,
So
with that attitude, just decide you're getting better and better at typing every day.
some liberal MPs are mounting a new effort to oust Justin Trudeau. Inside the slow, super polite revolt against Justin Trudeau. So this is all from late October, and then here we are in early December with Trump offering him a job as the governor of the 51st state.
Are they making any headway?
I'm just wondering though if there's any connection between the postal strike and whatever this like more sort of comic media layer is.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what the real deal is behind that strike. And I did some sniffing around and no one's exposing it as a fraud, but given the timing of it, I just don't buy it.
Ask Shane.
And why would it cost $50 to send something that weighs nothing, like it weighs like a t-shirt, to Canada? It's infuriating.
I mean, the way they move their stuff around is different than the way the post office moves their stuff around.
It's right? On Burroughs.
But also, government has to have something to help them remain, desired and relevant to most people. And cheap postage and transportation is probably all they got about now.
Pretty much.
All right. Well, that's extra lame.
Yeah.
Yay.
So gay.
So fake, so gay.
Dana said, Dani, have someone else mail it for you. How would that work? Like the U.S. Postal Service is not delivering mail to Canada. I guess I could physically mail it to Portugal and have some. No, but then they can't. Canada's not receiving mail.
Yes, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. There's probably like a modified, like, kind of like when people go on strike here, there's like a separate system that kicks into place to deal with the mail in Canada. But one of the ways they deal with it is just by closing off anything external. So anywho, all right. Well, I think it's super kind of you that you sent the gifts anyway.
It was one of those
fun for the team.
Thank you. I'm really devoted right now to transmuting like old schnorr tendencies, being like a cheap ass Jew. So when I'm in those moments, the only choice is like do the un-Jew thing.
Right.
So that's what I did.
Or the way I look at stuff like that is like I just remind myself that we're just playing Monopoly and that like none of it's real anyway. And just
but what's a bummer is the person I sent it to, I'm sure she would have preferred like a 50 in the package.
Totally.
Right? But instead it went to Bill Gates, who really needs it to go murder more people in Africa and India.
For his next breast augmentation. All right. Shall we get to some clips?
Yes.
All right. So I have most of what I have to say today is about this week's episode of America This Week with Matt Taibbi and my boyfriend, Walter Kern.
Right? There's something about him.
Matt Taibbi is like my psychedelic realm friend, and Walter Kern is my boyfriend. And I have clips for all of it today. Okay. The main point of the conversation, like I wasn't gonna bring a almost 1 hour clip. So we're gonna play an opening clip. And then I'm going to explain why everybody needs to go watch the whole thing, but the whole first hour. And then we have 2 other small clips. Okay. And the Matt Taibbi clip exists totally just to like, reify the fact of my experience with him dancing in his own hexagon at that party in downtown LA all those years ago. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with the opening clip from America This Week. Because I think it pretty much sums things up as to, oh, that's not good. Let's not do that. It pretty much sums things up as to where we actually are here. So, all right, here we go. Share sound, video. Here we go. Fair use.
All right, welcome to ATW Live Monday night. I'm Matt Taibbi.
And I'm Walter Kern.
Walter, I'm at a loss this week. You're going to have to carry the rock this week. I got nothing insight-wise. I'm overwhelmed. I'm gaslit to the extreme. I need your insight this week.
Overwhelming the likes of Matt Taibbi and everybody else in America is exactly what the game is now. We would be overwhelmed if we were paying attention to the real news, regime change in Syria, the coming of the Trump administration, the pardons that are on the table.
Canceling an election over TikTok.
Romania canceling an election over TikTok. But, okay, there's one of your clues right there, Matt. Who is more powerful in the Romania election? The people or TikTok? Well, TikTok as a scapegoat was more powerful than the people themselves, meaning that the secondary or tertiary or quaternary layer of reality expressed through social media is now in the driver's seat. That's what wag the dog means. It means, the part that's supposed to be at the back is now at the front. And now reality is social media plus events, quote unquote, which can be scripted, which can be performed in a way that makes the social media response predictable. That it's dinner theater murder mystery time in terms of this UHC killing. Then we've got the drone War of the Worlds reprise going on in New Jersey, and that's a separate matter. It works a little differently. But my thesis is simply this: they're both games. Now, the first true crime game, which was supposedly perpetrated by a guy who's turned out to be a gamer, okay, a guy who's interested in AI, a guy who admired the Unabomber, which I knew. Well, I already knew.
Who doesn't admire the Unabomber a little bit?
Well, yeah. Well, Matt, I was onto this thing from the day it started, and I recommend that everyone go to my Twitter feed because I've made absolutely brilliant and perfect predictions about how this thing would play out. Why? Because anybody who's written TV or written drama and also knows something about how information proliferates through our media system now can script one of these. Dude, you give me one free murder and I'll have the nation obsessing. Okay.
Right.
You might have to commit the murder, but I'll set up the manifesto. I'll set up the
social media response.
But that will all depend on the scripting of the original thing. And we've got America right now, like going down rabbit holes at a rate you've never seen.
Yeah. Okay. I get all that, but we accustomed ourselves. We had to learn how to read the news backwards to forwards, as you say, like, tail wagging the dog, narrative first, facts second. That was the whole training session of the, it's like the, when you learn to play a video game, they have like a tutorial, in the beginning where you hit forehands and backhands for a while. That's what the last 8 years was with this method of news. But now I can't even follow the meta narratives or what I'm supposed to be understanding now. I'm in Morris County, New Jersey. There's like UAPs flying over my house. There are people chasing drones all over this county, night after night, weeks on end, elected officials.
I'm ashamed of Matt Taibbi for using the UAP lingo.
Right? Well,
I'm so disappointed in him.
Once we're done with this opening clip, I'm going to explain why it is that I feel this entire episode is important, and some of Matt Taibbi's, like, it's this. Just wait. Yes, I feel the same.
Okay.
Are waking out there saying, "How come we don't have any answers?" The Department of Homeland Security is apparently met with the governor, and they're not saying anything. And this is a story that should be on the front page of every major newspaper in the country, and it's not. Meanwhile, everybody in the world's focused on that murder that you're talking about. But we've also had regime change in Syria, like sort of parenthetically take place. And they canceled an election in Romania that a decision we recognized. I just can't keep up with all this shit. I can't.
Let me simplify it all for you. Everyone who, was at all realistic and sophisticated.
Note this first thing, right? This comment that popped up there. I'm focused on Matt wearing a tracksuit. We'll get back to that later.
Okay, wait. I literally just wrote down that Matt's new name is Run DMT.
Okay, this is all for those of you who have been with me for a number of years, and Dani, if you've paid attention closely every time I've explained my interaction in the hyperdimensional party realm with Matt, he was always wearing his Adidas jacket and hat. That's right. Yep. And it feels like he wears this at least once every other week or month, just to remind me that yes, what I saw was real. Like if you went back and looked at all of Matt Taibbi's podcast and YouTube appearances in the last 15 years, right? I'd say on an average of 1 out of 3 every 3 or 4, he's wearing at least the hat, if not the hat and the tracksuit, right? So, okay, but yes, that Run DMT is perfect, right? That's exactly right.
Knew that when Donald Trump was elected, there would be a response. This is the response.
Okay, so basically, they're just laying out the territory that they're about to cover for the next more than an hour of the show. Mm-hmm. Walter Kern, look at Matt's face. This is Matt for this entire show. Look how bewildered he looks. Walter Kern, kindly and somewhat gently, but also a little bit like, you should know this, Matt, explain to him how events work, okay. Right? How these kind of, events, these problem, reaction, solution events, and that border on like, or is it real? Is it fake? Is it both real and fake? Like, is it more real than fake or more fake than real? Like he gave him a master class in being able to like zoom out and understand these things. Mm-hmm. And right. And that bewildered look on Matt's face is over and over. Meanwhile, Matt is very upset by this drones, UFOs, UAPs, whatever story that is going on in New Jersey. Right. Yep. And so like, for as fantastic as a reporter as Matt has been on a number of topics, listening to the entirety of this episode removed any doubt that I have. He's not in on it. The reason he's been able to be manipulated sometimes into being a useful tool for establishment at moments is because he's naive. He's fucking naive, right?
I thought we knew that.
I have no more doubts. He's an honest actor. He's completely naive, and he's great at like following the breadcrumbs. If you think only of breadcrumbs as like the witch left them to her cabin in the woods, knowing that the person will follow the straight line, right? But if there's like crumbs everywhere, he doesn't understand how to like dip out and dip in and pop over here. Walter Kern is a master of like doing a similar, understanding these levels at 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D.
Okay, I just figured out why, because I know we're going to talk about a certain interview on our next show, so I'm not going to bring it up. But I notice all the people who are being pushed to the front of the room in this so-called alt media space, they're so focused on their little whatever that they can't see the big picture, because Walter Kern is a novelist. Correct. So to write a whole book, you have to have like 1,000 pieces and figure out a way to weave all of them together. A journalist, it's like one little Correct. Thing. So it makes sense that he would get it.
Row by row. And the novelist is like, all right, let's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks and which things start to congeal, right? Okay. So,
but the people who think that way aren't given the same platform that the people who just focus on their one little specializing and can't put the pieces together are.
Well, the other thing is we're now starting to understand the reason Matt Taibbi feels, you look at him, he feels bewildered, is because every other time this is happening, he's been working at a major news publication where he hears everybody else talking about what they should think about different topics. So he's doing good work on whatever he's doing. But Someone else is telling him what the narrative is on this or the narrative is on that, so he's not confused by how confusing it all is. He doesn't work at Rolling Stone anymore. He doesn't work at The Intercept anymore. So he's not being handed the script as to this is how we're presenting reality. So he's now in this like, what the fuck is this? Like, I only know how to follow the story I'm following, and I'm used to everybody else telling me what everything means. And now I'm trying to keep track of everything myself because I'm finally in my big boy tracksuit or whatever it is, and right, kind of thing. So okay, so like again, like Matt Taibbi is not perfect. He's wrong about plenty of things, but watching the sense of bewilderment that he clearly felt like tells me like, nah, this guy was perfect because he is a good reporter. He's a good old-fashioned reporter, so they make sure they give him the narrowest possible lane to report on, so someone at that publication will have credibility, and he gets the rest of his worldview from the people around him who are handed Pentagon or CIA talking points as to, right? And so now he's out doing his own thing, and he's like, I need the novelist to help me.
Yep.
Okay, and then the novelist is used to crafting, you know, like entertaining, interesting, far-fetched stories, and so he recognizes them when he sees them. And he's also probably written scripts at times, so his analysis of what's going on with the United Healthcare thing is for someone who like his main identity is not as conspiracy theorist, it's fucking pretty good. And based on things that he's talking about as he's trying to explain all of this to Matt, while he's not yet as well versed in sort of the mind control, alternate reality narratives that we are, he's rapidly getting there. Like he is, talking about he's trying to get, Matt to read the Chaos Tom O'Neill book about, Charles Manson and MK Ultra. Like that is part of how he understands all of these events really well now, right? Okay, so it is like. So the people who've done the best, I've heard the best conversations about this United Healthcare thing. Charlie, look out for Charlie's doing great stuff from like the completely conspiracy red pill, black pill scenario that we all understand. So if you're looking for that, go watch that. But if you're looking for like watching someone who like you wish that like your uncle or your parents or your siblings were this awakened, that would be good enough for you, explaining to the still asleep people how it works. Like it's very satisfying to listen to Walter explain to Matt how the world really works, and Walter's sexy when he does it. And then later in the conversation, which we'll get to, like Walter exposes that he's still human because there's like another area where he is completely naive and Matt helps him along slightly, right? So it's kind of funny.
Do we have any backstory as to how Matt and Walter got together and decided to do their show together?
Well, so I do think that I don't know. We can go. I'll look into that. I'll bring that next week.
The reason I ask is because Ms. Matrix Metaphor is saying that Kern is an insider who looks like Gigi Abby Lynn says Kern looks like an intelligence agent. Are you sure that Kern is clean?
I'm not sure that Kern is clean, right? Like I said, I'm sure Matt's clean. I didn't say I was sure Walter Kern is clean. Right? I said Walter Kern is sexy.
Walter could be his handler.
Right. Walter Kern is sexy, right? Sure, right? Walter Kern is sexy. In my mind, Walter is kind of like a Robert Forte or a Robert Anton Wilson type, right? Where he's sort of proximate to all the big movers and shakers, but isn't like the biggest mover and shaker himself.
Yeah.
But has developed very sort of unique and sort of interesting takes on everything based on his proximity to stuff. But that doesn't necessarily make him like a clean actor. I don't know, right? Like, like when people are too clean of actors, that's not sexy either. You know what I mean?
Was he out in the podcast YouTube space before he partnered up with Matt?
I had never heard. This is what I'm going to go dig around, and I'll come back with receipts next week about like what the reported source of their relationship, where the starting point is. My guess is that Matt has written books that are not, he's written fiction books as well as nonfiction books.
Okay.
And Walter Kern is an author. So my guess is that they probably know each other from like the book writing world rather than like the reporting world. And that Matt probably, like, I think Matt I think Matt was bored with working, like, this is my opinion. I have no evidence for this. Matt left the Useful Idiots that he did with Katie Halper. He had started that podcast. He left that to go work on the book. He was supposedly just going to go work on the book, and then he never came back, and he instead started this podcast with Walter Kern. My guess is that Matt is kind of like bored of the people he meets, like in the general political reporting space, and really is more interested, like he likes like Hunter Thompson-esque kind of things and people. And so, but Walter keeps his finger enough on the pulse of like the news thing that like a comment, like, right? Like, so it's a news guy with a little bit of out there stuff and an out there guy with a little bit of news stuff, and it makes for a nice weave. My guess would be that, like, I think that Matt had probably grown a little tired of the conversation in the part of the room that he had been assigned to, and he wanted to, walk over to the artier side. Yeah. Right. He wanted to like go into the back room and do drugs with the naughty kids or something like that. Okay. So I don't know. Walter Kerr, my guess, most interesting people that I have met in my life, and right, this goes for like probably all of my favorite people, right? We all have something about ourselves or each other that makes most people go, right? Like we've all been places, right? Like we've all been places, like it's like, how is it that I was there at that time when this interesting thing was going on with these people that later would be the lore of this, that, or the other thing? How am I so proximate to so many famous or political people? How is it that like every story about my family is like fucking weirder and weirder and connect, right? Like we've all do this. And so it makes for interesting people. Like I think, yeah. So I can't vouch for anything as far as Walter Kern, other than that he's sexy and I enjoyed listening to him explain to Matt how the world works. Right? Okay. So that was the opening clip. So then the next clip, you go to the marker point 3525, right? At this point in the podcast, Matt has to stop the conversation to address something. This is mid Walter explaining to him how the world works. Okay. There's a sudden aside.
Why, if you had the ability to use them, would you not use these tools?
Well, because because in a functioning society, you shouldn't need to. Hold on a second. I got to address this. People keep giving me a hard time about my tracksuit. Folks, I'm a tracksuit person. I wear tracksuits. It's funny to me. It's ironic. And I'm old, and this is what I wear. So just
it's run DMT.
I'm sorry. Let's return to.
Okay, so in the middle, like I think he'd gotten to a point in the conversation where he was so uncomfortable about how little he knew about how the world worked and all the things that Walter explained to him that he had to go looking for something to like get a 30-second reprieve from that, right? And somebody had been talking since you saw when I played the first 5 minutes of the show, somebody was talking about his tracksuit, right? But for me, in my delusional reality, like he's just affirming that if you see someone in a tracksuit that looks like Matt Taibbi at a party in the hyperdimensional DMT realms or whatever it is, it's Matt Taibbi because he's a tracksuit guy. He wears tracksuits.
It's odd to me that there's so much commentary about the tracksuit when he wears it so often.
Right. This is what, right? But like, there's something different about this conversation is dragging Matt into a layer of reality that he has mostly avoided, except for in the delusional minds of people like myself before. And
right.
He's moving into that in the real world as well. And so he's
Has Laura ever witnessed him in his... Has Laura ever witnessed at a dance party Matt show up in another dimension dancing with him?
That one time. It was only that one time, but it was so many times over the course of the night that I ended up back, like, right? Like, have you ever like when you've been to a place where the border between two states is like a national park where there's like a California, and you like when you were little, you stood on one side, you hop back and forth, and you're like, now I'm in California, that's what it felt like. It was like, I'm at the regular party, I'm in the hyperdimensional party, back at the regular, hyperdimensional, back, forth. It was like that all night long, right? Weird. Yeah, and he was only in the hyperdimensional one. He was running on DMT.
Exactly.
Okay, so like I mean, that was a weird aside for the middle of the conversation, and I feel like that one was aimed just at me, right?
Totally.
Okay, next one. All right, so he explains to him through the description of what's going on with the United Healthcare thing or whatever, how the world works. And then Matt couldn't take it anymore. And he's like, okay, but now like we have to get to the UAP thing, the UAP story, right? And so they talked about that for a little bit. And then it kind of wandered off into the territory, which is what both on some level are there to do, right? Obviously, there's a level of naivete when like, remember like 10 years ago or 15, whatever, probably 10 years ago, like when Melissa Melton and Aaron Dykes figured out that like every time there's a school shooting that day, the United States committed like a war crime or overthrew a government, and the people of America were so distracted with the school shooting that they didn't notice that the other thing had happened.
Yep.
So they're finally putting 2 and 2 together on some level later in the podcast that that's how that works. And they get into talking about, you know, this thing going on in Syria, and then they get into talking about Trump's cabinet picks, because like Walter's idea is that it's going to be nonstop events as the response to the fact that Trump was elected and what's going on some level, right? So they get into a conversation about Trump's picks, and of course, like Walter Kern exposes his naive spot in what he has to say at one point. So we're going to move along here to 139:17, and we'll find out that he obviously apparently has not yet reached the place where he's ready for the reality of transcendental Hinduism and nuclear cults. But here we go.
Kind of business as usual, you know. For me, if I was advising him, I'd say, don't create unrealistic expectations. Under promise, over deliver, as they say.
Yeah, and a lot of the fat in government, especially with defense/intelligence, is in areas that are, you know, were designed to enhance presidential power, secrecy, all those things. So there's going to be it'll be.
Matt Taibbi is more up to speed in this sort of category than Walter.
Yep.
Be interesting to see if he actually follows through on essentially cutting his own spending authority, things like that. I mean, that's going to be a fascinating subtext to watch. And by the way, you mentioned Hegseth representing the soldiers, so does Tulsi Gabbard, right? I mean,
right.
We haven't had that kind of person.
She doesn't strike me as having the same type of integrity and devotion as Hegseth. It's like if her handlers tell her to sell the soldiers down the river, I feel like she'd do it in a second.
Well, yeah, let's you're going to hear their thoughts on Tulsi and
oh, sorry, I just want to be part of their conversation so badly.
Totally, right? Seriously, I would love to go drinking with them, right? And we all like, well, what I love about this. Let's play it, and then I'll tell you what I love about this conversation.
In a position like the DNI in quite a long time, you know, who isn't a career intelligence creep. You know, we've had some people who maybe you wouldn't instantly vomit if you were in the same room with them, but most of them have risen through the ranks of the intelligence services. So all of this criticism of her coming in, that she's, you know, totally unprepared, that's a plus as far as I'm concerned, you know, that she's not one of them. So,
well, his last DNI was Richard Grinnell, right? Rick Grinnell,
Mm-hmm.
who was an ambassador to Germany.
Yeah. Sorry, but why do they say she's not one of them? She's a career politician. She's absolutely more one of them than any of his other picks.
They were for the sake of brevity of what we're showing here, like I'm doing clips, but basically they've been talking about picking people who are not experienced in specific things as the cabinet picks. And she didn't she came in through the military, right? She's not been like a long time, and even though at this point,
congresswoman.
She was a congresswoman, but she didn't come up through the CIA or anything like that, right? She was military and but she
was still in psychological operations. I'll shut up.
Both of them, when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard,
don't know what they're talking about.
As they need to be on that topic, right? Like, I think let's finish the clip.
Got it.
Yeah, I think before then, I don't know if Grinnell is a veteran, but his resume compared to hers for this job, I would say was, less impressive. I think, no major terrible things happened because he was in that post. Part of our job as reporters is to tell people what we know and what we've seen that they may not. And I've seen Tulsi Gabbard exactly once in real life, and that was with you at that Rescue the Republic rally in DC. And I stood at the bottom of the stage and saw her speak. I saw her interact backstage, never got up to talk to her because she had heavy security. But my sense of her was, this is one of the toughest people on earth. And when she spoke, there were practically tears in her eyes. And she was speaking for the kind of, how can I put it, the abused American service people who are the pawns in these endless war games. And if she's not sincere, then I know nothing about human beings.
All right. And he just exposed right there his blind spot, right? Because this is a person that wanders around in circles of weird people and people who are culturally sort of interesting and whatnot. And he has probably not a lot of, like he said, he doesn't know who's been in the military or who's done this, that, or whatever it was. Like, he is not aware of the fact that, like, the tears in her eyes are because she's, like, getting closer and closer to that position of power that Chris Butler and the Science of Identity Foundation have been grooming her for the entirety of her physical life and probably past lives too, right? And so I love this conversation because each of them have this area where they're like completely naive and have no idea what's going on, right? So there's like a human level to each of them, right? And a naive level to each of them that makes it fun if we were to get around together and have drinks with them, because, right, like as like his analysis of the United Healthcare thing for a person who's not like mostly a conspiracy theorist is pretty fucking good. And then his analysis of Tulsi Gabbard is like, oh no, dude. Right. And then, Matt's analysis of Tulsi Gabbard is a little bit more like the standard take. Like, I don't know, we'll see what she does. I don't know if she's going to do the things you think that she's going to do, that kind of thing or whatever. But it was fascinating to have that, like, to see the two poles of Walter Kern, right? And then to have this totally bewildered Matt Taibbi until the very end, where they got back into his wheelhouse and he was offering, quote, a balanced perspective on each of these characters. It was a really entertaining hour and a half or whatever. But the segment where Walter just explains it all to Matt Taibbi, like I keep thinking that will be the name of this episode. Walter explains it all, right? People go watch it. I'll link to it in the description. Was kind of a fascinating watch. So
it's interesting to see. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. The two poles of Walter Kern. Totally gets it and doesn't get it at all.
Well, we all have blind spots, right? Like,
yeah.
It's just totally natural because the octopus has like 8 bajillion arms. But it's interesting to see who it seems like the Tulsi thing works on men, that men really fall for it. And I wonder if she had the same acting teacher as Obama, because she is very well-spoken. She presents herself very well. And I think there's a certain like casting the glamour piece to how she's rolling.
Do you remember when, I forgot about this. Do you remember when people were like trying to turn up whatever Obama's real identity was? Like one of the stories was that his real father had started the Subud cult in like some third world country. Do you remember that whole thing about the Subud cult?
I don't know if I remember the Subud cult. I knew the Muslim Brotherhood.
No, this is like, there was like 3 or 4 different like possible stories about Obama, right?
Barry. His name's Barry.
Yeah, Barry Soetoro. But one of them, so the Subud cult, and I can't remember, maybe it was when I was looking into Tulsi this week, or maybe it was something that someone else told me when we were talking about something else having to do with Vedic culture. But the name Subud cult came up, and I was like, I've heard that before. When have I?
How do you spell Subud?
So I'm going to show you here in just a second. Right? I was like, I've heard that before. Where have I heard that? And I'm like, oh, wasn't that Obama shit? So I went and looked it up. Saboot cult, Barack Obama, Obama's real father, Saboot cult founder, Muhammad, whatever it is, right? That was like one of the narratives about him, right? About this whole Saboot cult thing. And if you look at what the Saboot cult was, I'm like, oh, that's like the Barack Obama version of so this is that so there was people that were saying that this guy was like Obama's real father or something like that, right?
Okay.
But the Saboot cult is like another one of these sort of transcendental mysticism around all of that kind of stuff, sort of cults. And so you were just saying, I wonder if she went to the same acting coach, right? Like if this is one of the realities of Barack Obama, and he was raised in a cult where they were sort of grooming this sort of perfectly chiseled character for something like that. I just want to see what the Saboot cult is actually. So that's the symbol. Look at that. That's kind of interesting, right? 7 circles symbol.
But Hussein, isn't that his middle name? Hussein?
Hussein is his middle. I mean, it's not his real born middle name. His real name is Barry.
But if you're going to choose a name, it
Right.
would be the guy who created your cult. I didn't see who Hussein was.
I was trying to see what the Saboot, like it seems pretty similar to the cult that Tulsi Gabbard's in. Many Saboot cult members believe that there's an exercise that they do for training their spirit and purification and cleansing and centering and whatever it is, right? There's all of this. It doesn't sound that different than some of the stuff with the Science of Identity Foundation and the Trans Hinduism. So what you had said, we just triggered my remembering that I had just looked into this again this week. Whether they come from the same acting coach or whether whether the intelligence agencies are just running all these different kinds of grooming cults for like world leaders that can appeal to a variety of different kinds of people based on sort of their archetype and the energy they channel.
I think it's a yes and. Like, I'm sure they're being groomed and chosen, and I'm sure they're being heavily trained. Like, her stint on The View, where she like faced off with Joy Behar for calling her a useful idiot,
Right.
and how well she handled herself. I feel like that was indicative of how well trained she is. I mean, she's very poised. She's a very charismatic, charming speaker. And I'd heard, I don't know, however many years ago, but some guy interviewed who apparently was Obama's acting coach, and how Obama took on all of his mannerisms and all of his cadence and is basically just parroting the guy who taught him to pretend to be a political leader who's not a total globalist psychopath.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think all these things are true and relevant, but you're right about the Tulsi thing works well on men. She's got like Mickey snowed, Joe Rogan snowed, Walter Curran snowed, even the people who disagree, like a lot of the people who like don't completely agree with her politics, like they thought she was an impressive person to work with in Congress. They could come together on certain bills. It was all men. I've never heard a woman say anything nice about Tulsi.
I don't know. I'm just the jury's out whether I've heard that or not. But I think it's because, and I've said this before in a complimentary way, she is an embodiment of feminine leadership. Taking the Warhawk piece aside, she's maintained a degree of feminine grace and dignity. And I wonder if that isn't like a deliberate
Totally.
hook. You know, did you ever see that show with Robin Wright Penn and Kevin Spacey?
Yes, House of Cards. Yes.
And remember when she's having some conversation with some Russian guy and she like pulls him into the bathroom, she goes into a stall, she pees in front of him, she asks him to give her toilet paper. Like, she's using her feminine wiles very deliberately. And I wonder if Tulsi isn't doing that as well.
Well, one of the things I've noticed about Tulsi Gabbard is that she's never adopted the same political uniform as all the other females in Congress. She's never done that hair that looks like a helmet.
Yep.
She's never worn that like awful navy blue suit with the pearls and whatever it is. She's always maintained this like little bit more feminine and a little bit more like my unique look kind of thing. She hasn't gone to like the Stepford politicians school kind of thing. She's coming from something completely different. And same with Obama. Obama was different than all of the politicians that had come before him. And obviously, like we cannot overlook the Hawaii connection. We can't, right? There's so many similarities about them. They kind of really came up at about the same sort of time, right? It was like during his.
A little younger.
She's a little bit younger, but like she became
Barely.
a person while he was president.
Yeah.
Right? So there was like a lot of energy around these politicians from Hawaii that were like a little bit different.
Yep.
Right. So yeah.
You are required to cry on cue in exchange for Lehner's generous super chat. Thank you so much, Lehner, and thank you everyone.
Cry on
all
cue.
Your super chats.
Okay, hold on.
You need to cry on cue for us to really earn it. Hit it.
I struggle to cry even when I'm actually upset. So like, I'll call you when I feel like crying later. I don't know, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Are there any movies that make you automatically cry?
I've cried a few times in movies over the years, right? But like probably the only one that made me cry more than one time, like the same movie I cried the second time I saw it too, it's probably Beaches.
Oh yeah, that was a tearjerker, big time.
Right, and the music was like perfect for that, and yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious in the chat what movies make you guys cry.
So okay, so anyway, guys, what that episode with them was great, and what I was gonna say about what I like so much about the conversations, we all have our blind spots, and I think that's what like makes us human. The things that will be like the weird like clone cyborg, they won't have any of that. They'll be like 100% equally read in on the entire panorama of issues at whatever level of consciousness their programmers imbued them with, right? There won't be like that one soft spot, right? We all have to have, as humans, we like to feel like tethered to something for some stability. And so we need to believe that like we're right about at least one thing, or that one thing is true, right? And so I liked that arc was shown in the course of this conversation, right? that it was part of what just made it all together a good podcast to listen to. Everyone exposed their blind spot and their wisdom and, you know, whatever. Although Walter was a little more wise than that in this one for the most part. He showed his butt at the end. But anywho, all right.
Wait, he showed his butt?
No, I wish he showed his butt.
Oh my God, I love this. So cute. You and Laura need to have a four-way with Walter and Viva.
Laura, I think Laura's Viva. Laura, is your Viva crush over? She's over her Viva crush. I think
I respect that.
Shown himself to be too much of like a standard Republican who's been bought off by most of the same, Zionists that Dave Rubin has been bought. Or whatever it is, right? But
I have a trifle for us.
This is the second time you used the word trifle.
It's a trifle day.
But what when you say, what do you mean by trifle when you say trifle? Because my mom used to make a dessert that she called trifle. That was
like a little ancillary throwaway,
that's what the dessert was. It was like all the leftover like whipped cream and berries and pieces of sponge cake all into a glass. Yes.
Like a cracker in between meals or something. So I don't know if you've heard Malibu's on fire.
My dad told me that last night. Again,
as Malibu does.
Right.
And I wanted to share this. I actually sent this to you on Instagram. Le Petit Hermitage is being so generous in offering this very special deal of $200 a night for emergency shelter for the people who just lost everything.
Very, very generous.
So generous.
I wonder what their regular rates are. Are they? Are they giving a half off sale or a 25% sale, or what are they?
It's too bad they're not illegal immigrants, because then they would all get honeymoon suites for free.
Right. Okay, this is the trifle that I'm talking about. My mom used to make, she said that like this was a dessert that they served a lot of places in England.
Yes,
right?
that is a known English dessert.
My mom, my parents lived in London for 5 years, so my mom used to make stuff like, she used to like stuff like this. This is the trifle she was talking about. Okay, you ready for my told you so clip of the day?
So ready?
All right.
Just so our audience knows, I'm lobbying to change the name of our show to I Told You So.
All right, here we go. Breaking. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is reportedly advocating for his daughter-in-law, Amaryllis Fox Kennedy, to be appointed CIA Deputy Director. Did I call that one or what?
Oh, yeah.
Damn. Right? Look at that face, dude.
Why is he getting so much say? I don't understand why there's this unholy alliance. Who gives a fuck what RFK Jr. wants? It's not his administration.
What if the real thing that comes with RFK Jr. is the Amaryllis algorithm? And that's really, right? And they're having to, all this other stuff was just dressing for that, right? Remember, we've been talking about that algorithm that predicts the next terrorist events since we first discovered Amaryllis, right, Fox. So, like,
this doesn't look like her. Wait a second. That picture is not the same girl whose interviews you and I have been talking about. Is it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think this is like, I think when she like gets sloppy with trying to look like what she's not, like this is, I think that's who the real person is right there.
She's way cuter with her sloppy on camera look than whatever this is.
Correct. This is the devil in the details, right? But listen to this for a second. Do you remember at like, I don't know if we ever played anything here, but like at a certain point when like remember when like Joe Biden brought that like Harry Sasson person in as like the teenager who was like going around on all the shows and promoting Joe Biden. And then all of a sudden there was like all these TikTok influencers that were associated with the different candidates. And suddenly this guy named Link Lauren showed up. He was like a young gay guy and he was on Savvy Sab's podcast. Do you remember this? Okay. Well, the person coming in to back Amaryllis to give her the endorsement as to why she should be CIA Deputy Director is none other than this Link Lauren guy. So here we go.
Part of it, and it's already been 18 minutes and 5 seconds, which is crazy. Also, I don't know if I ever gave an introduction. Welcome to the Adam C. Moreno Show. I hope you guys are having a great day. There's a couple other topics I want to go into, but this is the video. We're almost in the deep end, kind of. It's kind of crazy. Also, if you like watching videos like this, if you like to get your news here, or if you like to consume information here, or if you just want to make me happy, go ahead and subscribe because that just really means the world to me. Okay, so other news regarding Kennedy. Check this out. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is reportedly advocating for his daughter-in-law, Amaryllis Fox Kennedy, to be appointed CIA Deputy Director, according to Axios. Now, I think that is awesome. I actually really appreciate the work that she did with the campaign, but to share this other person
podcaster that can't like make a coherent thought has gotten almost 11,000 views on this video in the last 20 hours and has 31,500 subscribers on YouTube.
It's so organic.
Dani, we're wasting our life here. Okay, here we go.
Clearly.
Affected by Link Lauren because it looks like he actually has, firsthand experience with her. So if you guys are kind of, not so sure how you feel about her, if you don't know her that well, I trust Link, so I think you should be able to trust him too. But Link Lauren says, I was the first person Amaryllis hired when she took over the campaign from Dennis Kucinich. We've had a special bond since. She's a friend. And
right? Guys, remember, this person is probably doing this for their full-time job at this point because that's kind of right. That right? Here we go. Continuing now. Listen to this.
Someone who changed my life in a positive way. No other campaign manager would have hired and elevated me the way that she did. I worked with her every single day on the Kennedy campaign, and let me tell you, she is wicked smart, unfazed by chaos, and knows how to build institutions from the ground up. That is crazy. She is also a promoter of peace around the globe. We need more leaders like her in the swampy waters of D.C.
Can we pause?
This is the endorsement. Yeah, I'm done. I just wanted to finish that.
But leave that up because I want to read his tweet one more time because I just pulled up this link's Wikipedia. Yes, he actually has one.
Right.
No other campaign manager would have hired and elevated me in the way she did. That is the crux of this because this guy is a TikTok content creator, musician, and British royal family commentator. And he got hired on
Correct.
this campaign?
That's what I just said.
This is a joke. This is a joke.
When I was saying how all the remember I just said right before I played the clip how all the
You did, but I didn't understand who this Link Lauren was. I was assuming he must be somehow more qualified. I didn't realize what a trifle he is.
fruitcake. All right, I just want to see. So this just happened to come into my feed at work today, right? So I'm like, okay, so I haven't done any further investigation, but I love that that exactly the play that I said was going to happen is happening. And the best endorsement they can find for why this is a good idea is this fucking fool being talked about by this fucking fool.
Can you pull up an image of Link Lauren? I just want to see what this being looks like.
He was on the Savvy Sabs podcast, right? Link Lauren. It was probably like a year ago, maybe, or 8 months ago. He was on the Savvy Sabs podcast, right? So here, this is Link Lauren right here.
Oh my goodness gracious. Is he gay?
I mean, I hope he's gay, because if he's not gay, it's going to be a problem, right? But at this point, with all the other Link Laurens being women, I'm starting to wonder if there was a transition somewhere. But all right, so I want to just see Amaryllis Fox for CIA Deputy Director. I want to see if anyone else other than those two bozos are talking about it. Yes, New York Post. RFK lobbies for daughter-in-law to serve as CIA Deputy Director.
Moron.
Right? Yep.
He's so gross. He's so pushy.
Independent.
You know that I know I've mentioned this on our show before. I think is it Kendrick Lamar, bitch be humble, bitch sit down. RFK, bitch sit down. You're not in a position to be suggesting who's the CIA director.
So, okay, so yeah, so people are saying he just wants her, this article is like, he just wants her in there so he can get the truth about what happened to his father and his uncle. I'm like, no, that's not why.
No, that is not why.
The reason why is the same reason why everything is the reason why. It starts with an I, ends in an L, and is destroyed, right? Like it's, okay. So another one for the stack of I told you so's.
Okay, so I have a 5-minute Catherine Austin Fitts. I don't know if we have time.
Just play it all the way through.
Okay.
Play it it's not, as long as we don't stop it, we're fine.
Okay, cool. Hang on, let me pull up the page so you don't have to see your own face, because I know that freaks you out.
This Thor at the door says that's a female soccer player, Link Lauren.
Okay, here we go. Fair use.
We're starting to just.
Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, yay.
We're starting to just. Trump's cabinet is starting to take shape. His second administration is starting to take shape, and that's our first story on what the composition of his cabinet looked like. First story from the Daily Mail. What is the net worth of Trump's new cabinet? The staggering wealth of his nominees revealed. Mm-hmm. He's on course to assemble the richest cabinet in U.S. history, with the number of billionaires sending total net worth $9 billion, over $9 billion. And that's not including Elon Musk. So let's just scroll through. They've got them laid out in order. Okay, so Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, we've seen him before. He's with Cantor Fitzgerald. So he's connected to the source of all money because Cantor is the primary dealer. He's connected right to the Fed. So we had that connection. There's no mystery there. Linda McMahon, Secretary of Education, she comes from a wrestling empire. She and her husband built a wrestling empire with Vince McMahon. Her net worth stands at $3 billion. Let's keep it going. Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury. He's a George Soros guy. He cut his teeth in the 1990s as part of Soros's team that made over $1 billion in a day, crashing the British pound. Interesting. Burgum, he had a software company that he sold to Microsoft in 2001 for $1.1 billion. And Dr. Oz is connected to none other than Oprah Winfrey. Where is that? Yeah, he was on the Oprah Winfrey show as a host and a regular guest for 13 seasons. So they're all neat and got a lot of connections. And we'll get to Musk in another story.
Yeah, so I want to make a point about Lutnick because let's go back to the 21 trillion missing money or any of the things the Fed is doing. Cantor Fitzgerald is one of the largest primary dealers, so that means they're running the Treasury market.
There's only 24 primary dealers.
Right. So what does a primary dealer do? They issue Treasury securities. So when Treasury issues Treasury securities, so they're issuing Treasury securities and selling them to, for example, our pension funds or sovereign wealth funds and pension funds all around the world. And then the money goes into Treasury, and then the Treasury refuses to obey the financial management laws.
Right.
And they say and do nothing.
Right.
Right. Now, if you're a company, if you had a company, John, and you were disobeying the financial management laws, your bank and your bond dealers would shut you off, right?
Yes.
Right. Cantor Fitzgerald has never raised an objection. So when the Trump administration implemented FASB 56, taking the entire books of the U.S. government dark, Cantor Fitzgerald said nothing. So if we look at who Howard Lutnick is, he's one of the largest dealers who, whether facilitating the monetary or fiscal policy that's outside the laws, he's the guy implementing it.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to be.
Right. So the notion that this team is going to drain the swamp.
Right. With primary dealers. Oh.
Well, but
primary dealers are the swamp.
Right. They are the pinnacle of the swamp. What I learned going to all the meet and greets is this is not compute, to people who are not financial people, this is not computing. During the period when the U.S. government refused to obey the laws related to its books, and the primary dealers kept selling their bonds even though they were breaking the laws related to financial management, and 21 trillion of undocumentable adjustments happened, and then the government took it dark. During that period, Howard Lutnick's personal net worth went up $2 to $4 billion. I want to bring this home if you believe that Trump is cleaning out the swamp, then here's the new Commerce Department head.
Right. I got a bridge to sell you.
Right. So let me connect the dots. We got a Bill Gates guy going into Interior who's going to run the land. We have Howard Lutnick, the primary dealer, going into Commerce
right,
to represent the people who'd like to buy those lands and minerals. And then we have a new Secretary of HUD coming in who is an expert and has a long history in opportunity zones, which is how people can roll their capital gains out of various things and buy real estate on a tax-free basis.
Right.
Okay.
And not to mention the Secretary of Education, who is royalty from a wrestling empire, a pro wrestling empire, and a Treasury Secretary who cut his teeth shorting one of the world's largest currencies. Good to know.
I wonder if she said the thing about like all the land is like a Bill Gates person, and you just showed us how Bill Gates is basically buying up all the FedEx and UPS. I wonder if there's going to be like a privatizing of the postal services kind of thing, like the thing in Canada is like the trial run, and then they're going to do one here, and Bill Gates is going to privatize the postal service, and he's going to make it like a UPS FedEx thing, and you're going to have to like identify everything about yourself every time you want to send anything anywhere. And yeah,
they've been talking about getting rid of the post office for a long time, so that wouldn't shock me. Everything's set up for it, as well as everything's completely in place for the imminent financial collapse. And thank you so much, Thor, for your generous super chat. We love you.
Thank you, Steve. I don't know. I was thinking just before, I didn't know he had done that. Just before you said that, I'm thinking of the titles of the show, and I'm like, is it going to be Walter Explains It All, Just a Trifle, or Female Soccer Player?
I feel like we should probably discuss it on air, but I'm still pulling for Run DMT.
Oh, we can do Run DMT. I like that. That's a good. I like it. That'll bring in a whole other set of watchers or listeners or whatever. I agree. I like talking about it on air. Like I like doing the embarrassing part out loud for this show.
Well, as long as we're doing embarrassing stuff out loud, I'm always curious, and I'd love to know from the chat. So we know Steve gave us the generous super chat, but Steve is choosing to use the moniker Thor at the door. So is it disrespectful for us to out our super chatters?
Robert's already done that for us.
Okay, I never know the etiquette on that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I tend to I outed people like Miss Matrix Metaphor is Kathy. I've outed her before, right? So, I won't give last names or addresses, even though, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But all right, let's go to the sandbox and play. Kids, if you have questions, comments,
or super chats, send them because it's the holiday season and someone just dropped $50 sending something to Canada.
Easter recoup for UPS funds here, right? Is Bill Gates the owner of Farmville? Is Farmville that weird little video game? Remember that weird little video game they were promoting on your cell phone, when they do the ads on your stupid YouTube videos? Isn't that Farmville?
I'm not aware of that, and I certainly don't have that, but he owns a lot of U.S. farmland.
Yes, he does.
I just Googled it. Excuse me, I DuckDuckGo'd it, and nothing's coming up.
Okay, maybe later we'll explain it.
But I'm no expert.
We're supposed to probably send me a PDF about it later. Later's great at finding PDF documents on things, right? That normally you might find, but you can't download unless you add some dumb reader to your computer or whatever. She's good at just finding the straight PDF and sending it. So
cool.
Maybe send us a
as you guys are looking for last minute Christmas gifts, I don't even know if it's last minute at this point. Look how thick this coloring book is. 444 pages of G-rated awesomeness for everyone on your gift giving list. Find it on Amazon now.
Something is wrong with this has been happening a lot lately on the YouTube thing. My chat froze and now I just tried to refresh it and now the whole thing is freezing. I hope people are still hearing
Last time we both tried to refresh, it went to hell. So I'm not going to refresh. And thank you, Ms. Matrix Metaphor, for my Canada package partial repayment super chat. Thank you.
That's weird. I don't understand what is wrong. Why it won't let me refresh the refresh.
Well, are you starting to have the same issues with YouTube that I'm having where I have to use a VPN to even get on it?
No, this only happens when I'm trying to do the live stream.
What if you open it on a different browser?
Let me just see if I open it separately. Hold on a
Hayden
second.
asked, while you're figuring this out, are y'all optimistic about the future? I'm super optimistic about the future. Thank you, Thor at the door, for buying 2 of my coloring books. That makes me super happy. Yeah, I'm optimistic about the future because my life keeps getting better and better and better. And I keep feeling better and better and better. And I'm creating my reality. And we're all connecting more and more, finding our tribes. I'm super optimistic. What about you, Em?
So my life is so much better now than it was 10 or 12 or 14 years ago. For many reasons that and I've gotten better at understanding what deserves my attention and how much, if it does deserve my attention, how much. And that has sort of helped me to put all of those things in perspective so I can enjoy my life. So yes, it's every day the sort of awareness expands, and as the awareness expands, the size of each problem gets smaller because you're paying attention to more things, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm very optimistic. And now I have a working chat box here. So I'm going to roll back and see. So later, yes, that's what it was. It was Facebook. It was a Facebook game. I remember seeing the ads for that back 10, 12 years ago. I didn't even know it was still a thing. Let's see what else. Oh, we're optimistic about the future. Okay, nobody else is putting it in capital.
People are getting bumped out of our chat for mentioning things that the thought police isn't digging.
That's weird.
I wonder if our chat is monitored differently than Matt and Walter's chat.
Maybe tracksuit is a code word that they have learned how to use, right? When they want to talk about something that they're not supposed to talk about, because that was a weird little aside. And the fact that Matt felt the need to address it so directly,
Do we need to get tracksuits? Is this what you're saying?
I might like tracksuits. Nigel, thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you so much.
Boy, it's nice to see so many of our friends here week after week. Sure makes me feel good. We have 141 people in the chat. Guys, we are growing. Thank you. There's some of you who have been here every week with us since the beginning. We appreciate all of you. It's
Big time
fun. We love doing this. So does anyone else have anything to throw into the pot? I don't mean super chats, although we'll take those too. I mean questions, comments, concerns. Hey, AI, RFK choose on gravel to get that voice.
I have a friend who has that voice, and it's like environmental asthma. I have compassion. I mean, personally, like, I don't need to pick on that. It's all the other pieces of RFK that are juicy for me.
I can get used to that whatever, like, yeah. The what was it? Steve says that YouTube has been doing that on Robert's astro weather chats too. So
okay, so it's just a new level of fuckery.
We have a hall monitor. We have a hall monitor. RC Crawling Addict says you were pointed here by Look Out for Charlie. I was talking about Look Out for Charlie earlier in the episode. His coverage of the healthcare, whatever the fuck is going on thing, is pretty good. He raises some points that are certainly valid. Yes.
I forgot to mention that Adam Curry covered the Mike Benz Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And he had such a weird take on it. I actually brought the clip, but it's too late now. But so he was saying how, like, his wife, the keeper, couldn't even get through it and, like, refused to watch it. He thought it was, like, really dense and boring and weird that Joe wasn't speaking. And he was super suspicious, like, why is he amassing all of this information about the censorship industrial complex and he's not talking about propaganda at all? And I was like, why is that a thing? Like, he's clearly chosen to specialize in this one realm that I haven't seen anyone else talking about. And Adam was, like, super suspicious and not buying it.
Okay, so I think I have heard him talk about propaganda before. It just depends on what the people's responses are to what he says, which lane he goes down. But I think and I'm again, I'm sure that there's probably some stinky pear in his underwear drawer that we'll find one day, and we'll deal with that when we get to that point. But, like, we don't all have to address all the things, right? And like, he's really good at just staying in his lane. And he'll even say, like, I don't even have an opinion on this. Like, maybe an American empire is a good thing. I don't know. But if we're gonna have one, maybe it should be for the American people and not for, like, Ukraine or whatever it is. Right. So he seems pretty moderate politically. And he's like, this is the one thing that I know how to do right. And no one else is doing it. So I'm gonna do it. And that's it. Right.
It was weird to me because I felt like that was the most relevant and informative Joe Rogan podcast that I've seen in a long time.
It's also what Mike Benz does on every other podcast he's ever on. And so obviously whoever made the call, whether Joe has a producer or Joe decides for himself or whatever, or if it was Joe's CIA handler, but whatever, like, they know that that's what he's going to do. And that's what Joe wanted. Right. And I've never heard Joe say, and this is credit to Joe, right? That at the end, he's like, you've really given me something to think about. I think I'm going to have to listen to this 3 or 4 more times. I have never heard him say that, even on other shows where people have laid out important, even other shows where it's, like, surprising that they were allowed on his show. Right. And so, like, whether Adam feels that the overwhelming of people with all of that kind of info is some kind of thing or not, the most important thing, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, that Mike Benz brings forward is this idea of the way democracy has been redefined. Right? And it's just everybody now, whenever they hear their fucking politician, spokeshole or whatever, say the word democracy or our democracy or democratic institutions, are you talking about the people, or are you talking about the consensus of, quote, democratic institutions, right? What are you, if that became the question that just like the politicians, like, remember when, like, Kamala Harris wasn't letting people in burqas into her events anymore because she didn't want to be pestered about Palestine?
No.
Yeah, like there was some videos of people who were wearing like hijabs or burqas or whatever, who were being turned away even though they had tickets to the events. Like they had signed up, they'd gotten the tickets, but it was like during the weeks where there was a lot of like the pro-Palestine protests and things like that outside of the events, and so she just stopped letting them in. Like it needs, if it gets to that point where it's like kick out the person who's asking the question about democratic institutions, right? Like it needs to get that annoying to the spokesholes in power.
Have you seen anyone do a full show on the rebranding of the redefining of democracy?
Maybe we should reach out to him and say, hey, like we recognize like we're in a different lane and not as big of a platform, but we feel that nobody else is focused on this, and we want to make this the meme that everybody just repeats over and over until the politicians want to kill themselves.
Yeah, I'm totally willing to do that. Who's the first? Where did you first hear about that switch?
When he talked about it on Tucker Carlson.
So Mike Benz is the first person you heard it from.
I mean, the first person I've heard defined the situation. For us, this is the thing that the thing that you and I have intuitively been onto for so many years when they say our democracy, was that we could sense that it was what they were talking about was something like this. But he was the first person to explain that no, this group of people, this coalition of this all of society, I think he calls it like an all of society response or whatever, all of society, he has a name for it, that they redefined the term, right? And so I would like to focus, like if we could just make that concept go viral, and a politician will never be able to go speak anywhere without being questioned on what they mean when they say democracy.
Yeah.
That'll overturn a lot of stuff.
I feel like it's so important. I first heard it when Mel K was talking about it and broke it down as part of Homeland Security. But yeah, it feels like one of those crucial things that should be prioritized, just like rescinding the Patriot Act.
The first time I heard it explained was by Mike Benz on that thing. The first time I heard stuff that started to let me know that that was what he was kind of talking about was during Matt Taibbi got introduced to him during the first stage of the Twitter files, right? And that was sort of where I first started hearing about Mike Benz all the time. So like maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's odd to me that crucial piece isn't being talked about more so. What's your take on Ashley's question of the New Jersey drones?
I mean, like to me, it feels like I mean, it's not like it's not generally a story that's super my wheelhouse, but my guess would be is that there's probably things going on in the sky that they don't want people to notice. So just do that instead and let everybody talk about that and feign some degree of ignorance about that. That's one possibility. Another possibility is they're testing something out because there's something that's like about to possibly sort of happen. And like another thing is just like it's just another one of these scripted events to take people's attention off of like the other things that are actually happening. Like I don't know, but I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. It's one of those things that I'm only aware of because I see things in my feed talking about it, but I haven't read them. And then Matt brought it up, and so that was the most I'd heard about it. Ashley, what's your take on it?
Well, I've had more UFO sightings here in the past 3 weeks. Like they've really amped up, and people like my other friends are having this experience in other parts of the world. To me, it just seems obvious that they're gearing up for Project Bluebeam. I don't think they're going to go gently into that good night. Do you know who was that? Dylan Thomas? But I don't see this administration and all of the fucktards backing it just gently and gracefully bowing out come January 21st. I think that it's all prepping and seeding the groundwork for the big fake alien invasion. That's my take.
Yeah, I will say, Ashley, I was recently in Central California, and I was at a high point in the town, like an observation hill, And someone said, look over there and you'll see some interesting things, but didn't necessarily say exactly what I would see. And I saw two things. I saw a comet, and then I saw things that I would call UFOs just because I don't know what they were, and they were flying and they were objects, right? That were like coming through this like hole. And what it looked like was like, if you imagine, if you were like parked on a street and you just kept seeing cars come out of this one area, it's like a freeway exit. It seemed like there was like some kind of highway, and then there was this exit, and things were like coming out through this hole. Oh, and you just kept seeing them come through the way you would see cars coming out of like a tunnel or out of a freeway exit or something. And they were different than any other kind of things like that I had seen before. Right? Like but they had like a certain energy about them that I was like, oh, this is something interesting. I can't say what it was, but it felt like an off ramp. It felt like a super highway off ramp for like these extra dimensional energetic beings.
Did I send you the map from my friend's UFO files that had the map of the multiverse that a gray hybrid gave to her mom? And the map showed different black holes as like entrances and exits, like, you know, chutes and ladders, and you could like, you know, get on a slide and get, you know, your so it sounds to me like you were tapping into one of those places that was like an exit for one of the black holes.
I'm going to see, you sent me about 5 or 6 pictures, and I feel like I've seen, and what was funny is like I was looking at one of those black hole things, and I was like, oh, but it says in the thing you sent was exactly the thoughts that I had at an experience a few days before. Is this it? No, that's not it. No, I don't know, but what you're saying is like something else I've looked at this week.
I also think it's in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
So I think it's all converging at the same moment.
Okay, I just want to see. I asked Ashley what her thought was. I just want to see if
she's ignoring you.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Anybody? Okay, I think we're done. I don't see any more all capital letters than that. Ashley, if you have an answer, you can always text me later.
She's all right. Mad at you.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Look at Dani trying to start some shit.
Just being a good Aquarius.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week.